Hi, welcome to the video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy, and comment your thoughts and opinions on the stories. Let's get started. Am I the antagonist for not wanting a relationship with my cousins anymore? I have 3 cousins who I grew up with who I considered more like brothers than cousins. We all went to school together from one street grade through high school and constantly were spending the night at one another's houses. 2 of these cousins are actual brothers. About 7 or so years ago, they started to flake on me and exclude me when we'd all be back in town from college for a holiday. We'd all get together, but wouldn't respond to my texts or invite me. I was hurt by this, but ultimately decided I'd let it go. I wasn't entitled to being in their lives, so I'll leave them alone. But we would always be family, so I kept it in mind that, if they ever needed me, it'd be there, since that's my idea of family. Time went on, and I didn't really see or speak to any of these 3 cousins for 2 years until 5 years ago when the mother of the 2 brothers unexpectedly died. I was one of the first to find out, and all of our aunts and uncles were asking me to get in touch with them, since nobody else had their phone numbers or social media at that time. I ended up getting a hold of their contact info and gave it to an aunt so she could call them and tell them to come to the hospital. When they arrived at the hospital, they entered the room and instantly told me to get the fuck out. Myself along with everyone else was stunned. I can't stress enough how out of nowhere it was. I was literally just sitting there quietly amidst the rest of the family mourning our aunt, and the first thing her sons did was tell me to get the fuck out. I got up and left. They were grieving and had just lost their mother, but that much hostility in addition to the exclusion from years prior hurt so much that I considered that the bookend on our relationship. I haven't seen or spoken to either of them since then. Fast forward to now, and I get a phone call from a few aunts asking me if they can give this group of 3 cousins my contact info because they want to meet my wife and 5mo daughter. Now, I don't harbor any ill will towards them, but am not even slightly interested. I've got family on my wife's side and friends close enough that I consider family. I'm happy with my life and am just not interested in trying to pick back up on a relationship from when we were like 20 years old. My aunts and mom say I'm being cruel and that I should forgive them, but from my perspective they've been forgiven. It just also happens to be the case that I'm not interested in them anymore, and it's also been so long that I don't even really know them anymore. Am I the antagonist? Now for the top comments. NTA, this sounds like it's all your aunts doing, not your cousins. They want to meet your wife and daughter? Does that sound like it might reasonably be true? Don't let toxic people into your daughter's life. I believe they'd be interested in meeting them. That seems true to me. But it's like, what would we even talk about? We haven't had a real relationship since like 2014 to 2015. NTA, you do what feels right for you. But I'm sure curious as to what they think went down between all of you. I really have no idea. I was basically a hermit until I was 22ish. Back then I thought they distanced themselves because I was a shut-in type. They would go out to a club and that just wasn't the sort of thing I was into at that age. I can't think of anything I would have done to make them sort of drop me from their lives. Am I the antagonist for telling my sister-in-law her daughter's name isn't Irish? I'm Irish. My husband is American. We live in the US currently, but met back in Ireland. His sister has always been obsessed with my accent, my name, and the fact that her brother married a real Irish person. She and her husband had a baby very recently, a little girl. My sister-in-law excitedly told me ages ago that she was giving her daughter an Irish name and she couldn't wait for me to hear it. Around that same time her husband asked me if the name was actually Irish. He told me what it was, and I said no. I also pointed out that the Irish middle name they did use was the American spelling, and not one used back home. I didn't say anything to her because she never asked, and I wasn't supposed to know the name. Apparently they argued over the name a lot, and he tried to convince her to stop saying it was Irish. Her daughter was born, and she announced the name to us and the rest of their family. She had the name printed on a banner, so the spelling of the middle was clear too. She talked about wanting an Irish name for her because of me. Her husband told her to stop saying it was Irish. She was so mad at him for claiming it wasn't, and I jumped in. I said the first name was Scottish, not Irish, and that the middle name is not the Irish spelling or anything close to it. She went crazy and told me the name was Irish. That Irish and Scottish had the same stuff. I told her there was some overlap, sure, but we still had our own distinct names and the one she had chosen was clearly Scottish. Then she told me she chose the least dumb spelling for the middle. She is so pissed that I pointed this out to her. She's pissed at her husband for disagreeing with her in the first place. Drama has ensued and everybody is hearing about how shitty I'm for trying to convince her that her daughter's Irish name isn't, in fact, Irish. Am I the antagonist? Now for the top comments. NTA, if she really wanted an Irish name, then why not check it with you, an Irish person? Also, why argue with an Irish person about an Irish name and believing she knows more about Irish names than an actual Irish person? Or for the middle name at least just be like it's an Irish influence name, but we made it easier for Americans to spell. Apostrophe. NTA. What an absurd hill for her to die on. Hey you, person of the culture rhyme vehemently bastardizing. You're wrong about your own culture. I'll have you know that Paige Chavin is the Irishest name to ever be Irished. And how dare you come into my country and tell me I'm wrong. That about sum it up. Am I the antagonist for demanding I see my own bank account? For context, I'm 17F, almost 18, and I work 3 jobs where I make $9, 15 hours and $15, 25 hours, and I'm about to start a 3rd job. My parents are also mild alcoholics who blow easily $50 plus a day on alcohol. I don't think this is relevant, but I'll include it in case it is. My mom has never let me see my own bank account, and it's becoming a major problem. I have a credit card, right? She tells me I'm spending too much, and honestly I don't think I am. I normally ask for gas money, crickets, 8 reptiles, and food needs. I'm lactose intolerant and gluten free due to a thyroid issue. Tonight, I asked her if I had money to get lactose free milk, and in front of her friend, she tells me I spend too much and starts talking to her friend about how I constantly ask for money. I said maybe I wouldn't spend as much if I could physically see the money leave my account, which is accurate. I don't like spending extra money, and I don't like using cash. She then got mad at me and accused me of spending all my savings. Her friend piped in and said her son blew through all her savings. This made me really mad, and I snapped at her saying don't compare me to a 25-year-old man. I don't think I'm in the wrong here, especially because when I do buy something for myself, it's either with a discount or from places like TJ Maxx or Ross. I don't buy designer, and I don't like to spend money, but when I can't see my bank account, I guess I ask too much for money, and she thinks I spend too much. Am I the antagonist for asking again to see my own bank account, or for snapping at my mom in front of her friend? Edit. Both of my parents have full-time jobs. This is probably relevant. Edit 2. I googled it. I can't open a bank account till I'm 18. So July 1st street lol. Now for the top comments. Huge red flag. Go to the bank with your ID and go over your account with a bank employee. NTA. This an op. You'd probably be better off cashing your paychecks instead of putting them in this bank account and leaving it in a locked box with a trusted family member. I have a strong suspicion you're working this hard and your parents are blowing all your money. NTA. The alcoholism is relevant, as it sounds like your mum is spending your money. Also, why are you buying your own milk? Why aren't your parents buying this for you? Unsure the law where you are, but suggest the second you turn 18 you get a new bank account that only you can access it and redirect all your pay there. Okay, I might. I just want to say thank you guys. I'm borderline crying right now, and googling how to create a bank. Y'all's comments really do help. Thank you. Am I the antagonist for telling my dad he can't dye my sister's hair against her will? I'll keep it short. I have a 10-year-old baby sister who lives with my dad. He often likes to be controlling about what she wears, and even goes as far as picking out her clothes at the store instead of letting her pick out items she's not allowed to choose. Today she texted me asking for help because he had told her she was going to dye her hair his favorite color. For some context, I just colored my hair and did offer for her to dye hers as well, but she wasn't interested. When I'd asked him if he was okay with her trying if she wanted to, he said yes. then continued on to tell me about a hairstyle he saw on a really hot woman. When it asked my little sister how he was trying to get her to do it, it was in the same exact style that the hot woman had. I found this super creepy and told him absolutely not. He doesn't get to play dress up with a 10, almost 11-year-old girl. He threw a fit and said I was majorly out of line. Am I the antagonist? Now for the top comments. NTAUMN. There is something wrong with your dad. He is sick in the head. He say a hot woman with a hair color and now wants to put that color on your sister? Do you realize how twisted that sounds? Please keep defending your sister to your dad, because I'm seriously concerned even from the little you've revealed here. She's with me 90% of the time and we have a very close relationship. His behavior is very concerning to me as well. Wow. Super creepy. You should keep a dialogue ongoing with your sister, so that she trusts and confides in you. Who knows where that's going? Where's mom? Is she in the picture? An adult looking out for your sister, other than her father, would be a good idea, too. NTA. Her mother lives in another state. Me and my best friend both spend most of our time with her, so if I don't answer my phone, my best friend does. Am I the antagonist for yelling at my wife for asking our neighbor about her health? My wife and I have lived in our current home for 8 years. About 4 years ago we had a young couple move in next door. Handsome young couple with a dog. We made a few attempts at first to engage with them, invites to barbecues, etc. Closed bracket comma. But they were politely distant. And we got the picture that they weren't looking to be friends. And we have politely coexisted ever since. We don't interact outside of that. We are neighborly, not friends. So, last week my wife noticed that the neighbor lady was suddenly bald. All of her long blonde hair was completely gone. My wife informed me of this and wondered aloud if the neighbor had cancer. I wondered with her, hoping that it wasn't the case. I did say, I know a lot of women shave their heads in solidarity with their friends who are sick. And a lot of women are shaving their heads nowadays because of fashion. My wife couldn't stop wondering though. I finally came out and said, Hon, if you see her out and about, don't ask her about it unless she brings it up. This past weekend my wife was outside and saw our neighbor in the yard with her dog. My wife waved to her and they engaged in some quick small talk. As the neighbor lady was walking away, my wife called out, BTW, I meant to ask. I noticed that you've shaved your head. Is everything okay? The neighbor politely informed my wife that she had started undergoing chemotherapy and radiation treatment for cancer. My wife asked what kind, how long, etc. My wife came back in the house and unloaded all this info on me. When she was done downloading the gossip, I asked my wife why she had asked her anything at all. My wife told me the neighbor didn't mind answering her questions, and that I was being an ash / indicating she had done something wrong. My argument back was simple. You spoke with her for 5 minutes. She didn't bring up her hair loss once. And even when she had walked away from you, you called her back to ask her. To me that indicated that the neighbor did not want to discuss it with my wife. My wife meanwhile says she is openly walking around bald, and if she didn't expect people to ask her about it, she would be wearing a hat. My wife wants to start going over to check on her and bring her food etc. And I told her flat she was being rude and intrusive. I have had cancer, and I remember being very picky about who I told about my illness. I shared this with the wife and she says that was my experience. Am I the antagonist for telling my wife she was an intrusive gossip and needed to mind her own business? Now for the top comments. NTA, no offense, but I genuinely cannot stand people like your wife. If it's not your business, don't get involved. Thank you. NTA, your wife needs to learn to mind her own business. Thank you. NTA, tell your wife to stand down, and unless someone asks her, stay away from the neighbors with her food and check-ins. She's being nosy, and for God's sake, discourage her from spreading your neighbor's business around the neighborhood. Tell her to respect boundaries and leave people alone. Am I the antagonist for refusing to let my brother-in-law spend the night in my room during a family vacation? IF21 went with my family on a vacation to beach resort. It was me, my dad, mom, my sister, 31, her husband, brother-in-law, 37, and their 2 kids. My parent booked 2 rooms, and I got one for myself, meaning that I paid for it. They didn't force me, but I still paid. Anyways, I noticed that my sister and brother-in-law were acting strange before we got to the resort. At the hotel an argument ensued between them, and my sister ended up kicking him out of the hotel room and stayed there with the kids. Brother-in-law then knocked on my door at 1 AM asking if he could stay with me for the night because my crazy sister unfairly yelled at him and kicked him out. I tried to pressure him to tell me, but he stalled. I said I didn't feel comfortable having him sleep in my room, but he snapped and told me that he was like a brother to me and I was being paranoid. I suggested I go talk to my sister and try to get her to let him into the room since he paid for it, but he said no and that she was the one who told him to stay with me. I suggested that I have mom come stay with me and he stay with dad, but he refused. I declined and said I couldn't let him spend the night in my room, period. He got mad at me and went like borderline hysteric till the point where the staff got involved. My sister then came out the room and started arguing with him again, which resulted in him sleeping outside. My parents thought I should let him stay with me, but my sister said it would have been inappropriate and denied telling him to knock on my door and ask to stay with me. He has stopped talking to me after that, and my parents insisted that I should let him stay and not let him sleep outside. They said I created unnecessary tension and added more stress to the vacation by acting selfish. Now for the top comments. NTA. My parents insisted that I should let him stay and not let him sleep outside. They said I created unnecessary tension and added more stress to the vacation by acting selfish. Your parents are ridiculous to put this on you somehow. Very strange response by the parents. NTA. That's very weird behavior from your brother-in-law. Good for you for standing your ground. It's especially concerning he refused the offer to stay with her father, which was clearly the only appropriate solution. I bet the sister would have been even more furious if her husband had slept in her sister's room.